to Be Growth Driven, another episode here where we are interviewing those that inspire, innovate, and grow their individuals out in the marketplace, your marketplace, that are growth driven. And I have I'm very privileged to welcome a good friend and a special guest. His name is Mark Kinsley. He's the president of Englander Mattress Company. And without further ado, it's the best way to just really get to know this guy is to bring him right on. Mark, thanks for jumping on with Be Growth Driven. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Joel, such a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me on Be Growth Driven. I saw like all those amazing faces like tiled across the screen with that rock music playing. And I'm like, I'm in the right place. Like it looked like some incredible people been on the show. So it's absolutely an honor to be here with you.
Fantastic. We're happy to have you. So it is now, for those of you that are just joining us, maybe some of you know who Mark is, but he is a valuable leader in the whole sleep industry. He has set the stage and built community within the sleep industry. But I think the better thing to do is, Mark, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you're all about, where you're at now, where you're going, and what you're all about.
Well, everybody, you caught me right at the tail end of my tenure as president and CEO of Englander Mattress Company. It's been an absolute joy serving and growing that company over the past 5 years. Now, it's a brand that's been around since 1894, licensees in 25 countries, operating out of 14 factories across the US. So it's been an amazing experience. And the business was growing. And my other side hustle that I'd had for, the better part of a decade had grown to the point where it just needed me to do one or the other. And so that side hustle kind of has a cool story behind it. And it really defines where I ended up today. The company's called The Fam, which we talk about our businesses and our industries like family. But in our case, it is definitely that, but it's also for all things mattress. And so I have to rewind a little bit if you want to hear kind of my entrepreneurial journey, but it started, I was a journalist. So I did TV and I was a weekend anchor and a reporter. And then I had a daily talk radio show for 4 years. And while I was doing that, I was just kind of banging around radio so I could get my master's degree, got that, hated the hours. And I got into marketing and advertising and kind of into the agency world. Along the way, I got an amazing client called Leggett & Platt. They invented the bed spring in 1883, invented it. And they brought me in to run marketing for them. It's about a $5 billion company. And I was running marketing for them. We had a 40-person in-house agency I was responsible for. And while I was there, we had customers. We sold everybody inner springs all over the world. And we had a customer called Englander. They came knocking on my door saying, we need to really refresh this brand and bring it into the 21st century, about 2 decades late, kicking and screaming. So I've just been able to do that over the past 5 years. But along the way, I started a podcast. It's called The Fam Podcast. I've done about 570 episodes. And that podcast really turned into a kind of a community. And so we started meeting up in person and we started, getting together online during COVID. And next thing you know, the podcast became The Fam, which was a larger media property that now has conferences, communities, and content. And so we have Dream Camp and Sleep Summit. We're all about helping the mattress industry get better. We're trying to help everybody understand the purpose behind what we do. Sleep matters. This is the surface you spend a third of your life on, and that third is going to make the other 2/3 better or worse. And so I'm really passionate about the mission behind it, and the people behind this mission are the community that is The Fam. And so I'm transitioning full-time into running The Fam, our conferences, our content, our communities, and all kinds of other fun stuff I haven't even unveiled yet.
Right. And we've been a part of The Fam here for the last number of months. And I got to tell you, you've done a phenomenal job. I didn't know there's 570 episodes, but that explains, when we were walking around with you at the recent expo in Columbus, Ohio, the ISPA Expo, it's like people knew who you were. People were like, oh yeah, man, I watch your show. I watch your podcast. I know who you are. Like you've created this presence in the sleep industry that is undeniable. And that just goes to, the 570 episodes, like a testament of what it takes.
Yeah, it really is. We didn't take, I started doing the podcast early on with a podcast partner, and we didn't take a single dime of advertising money until episode number 100. So on the 100th episode, it was pretty amazing. There was some pomp and circumstance to it because we took our first dollar, for somebody to sponsor us. And so it really reminds you of what it does take, the amount of consistency over time that leads to that compounding effect, which eventually, it's like we've talked about in our group, it's like bamboo. it grows and grows and grows for 5 years underneath the surface, and you never see anything. And then all of a sudden, over the course of about 6 weeks, it just shoots, feet and feet into the air all of a sudden. So it's that overnight success, 10 years in the making, I think.
I think we've all seen that illustration like on social where there's the iceberg. This what's underneath the water is so much more bigger than what's above the water. So it just goes to like show like the foundation that you do have to build. Like there's a lot of people out there that want to build something similar, like a community like what you've built. If you were to give some advice, is like what's the most effective strategy for them to do that? What would you say? Like, you've done this in the mattress and sleep space, but in general, there's fundamentals here.
There are fundamentals. And I think the luxury I had was I was able to just keep showing up. When I was at Leggett and Platt, like I said, it was a large company and we went to all the industry events. And so I got to know a lot of different people. And so I was able to go to all the conferences, all the markets, all the meetups, all the expos. And I just, got to keep showing up and learning. And I was so thankful along the way to have people that were nice enough to answer my questions. So I think you got to show up. You got to keep asking questions, seeking advice, helping people, let people help you. I think that's a really big piece of the puzzle. And then, figuring out how you can serve along the way. My background was radio and creating media. And so I loved asking questions and learning about people and telling their stories. And so I started doing this podcast because in the mattress industry, you got to imagine the people that make the squiggly springs that go inside mattresses, they don't really get down to the consumer level very often. And so, we were at kind of in a pickle where, at that time, the company Tempur-Pedic was spending hundreds of millions of dollars to tell the world that springs are terrible and foam is great. And so the podcast was really a way to have a voice with an audience called the Retail Sales Associate, the RSA, that we wanted to say, hey, springs are pretty great. And here's why. We've been at it for a long time. And so I was able to serve through creating content, which was very aligned with kind of my essence. I was a storyteller to begin with. And so I think that's another principle is like, find something that aligns with where you can add value and do that. Some people that want to be stars or they want to, be the big showboater or something like that. There's a place and a space for that, but I think it's really making it about the people that you're around. And the guy that wrote Story Brand, Donald Miller, is that his name? Sorry if I screwed that up. He talks about
Story Brand, right?
Yeah, okay. Story Brand, Don. So he talks a lot about this idea that you're the guide and everybody else is the hero. And so when you're creating community, it's figuring out ways to help your community members be the heroes, and you're just there to facilitate, to guide, and to connect. And I think the principle there also is this mindset of abundance. And I think it's pretty easy for people to say, like, do you have a mindset of abundance or are you territorial? Truly adopting an unconditional mind space of abundance helps with community building, because if somebody comes into your community and they're better at things than you, what do you do with that person? Do you try to shut them down, or do you highlight them and let them teach the community, be a part of the community, share their expertise? Well, it's a no-brainer. You bring those people to the forefront, shine a big bright spotlight on them, even if it's something that you feel like you do great and it's kind of putting you on the sidelines a little bit. You're not the hero. They are. You're just there to be the guide and the facilitator and to create the space that people can come to and be a part of. Right.
Now, this has got to be, a journey. It's a journey full of memories, right? Along the way. What's some of the biggest challenges you faced along that path to like, you're getting ready to turn a whole new chapter in the fam. What's been some of the biggest challenges leading all the way up to this?
Well, I'm similar to, I don't want to say I'm similar to Phil Knight, but I remember the book Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. And of course, he's the founder of Nike. And he talks about how he kept his job as an accountant until he had about 40 employees. So he was a guy that was like really scared to leave his job until he was pretty sure it was going to work. And so he had like this stable accounting job, but he'd grown, it was called Blue Ribbon back then, but he grew it to 40 employees. Can you imagine that, 40 employees and you still haven't left your job? So I think for me along the way, it's been this like reality of like, oh my gosh, the fam is really turning into a significant business, and it's serving an industry that really wants community that goes beyond mere connections or obligations. And so being able to lean into that and focus at this point, um, it's kind of removing some of that challenge, but it's kind of a significant milestone for me because after 20 years of like having side hustles and businesses, for the first time ever, right now, like this is like almost announcing it, I'm going full time into the fam. You know, I got to feed myself. Hopefully, it's better than rice and beans. But that's a little bit scary after I've had this safety net for a long time. So building it to a point where I felt comfortable making that transition was more aligned with my mindset, my mind space, my lifestyle. But I always
Mhm.
knew it was going to happen. So I just kind of saw what that timeline, that let's call it the timeline range could be,
Right.
and I put that in place and really got after it. But I would say specifically the challenges have, it was probably, you know, this past year was the most challenging year in the business's history because we came out of the gates and and it was really clunky at the beginning of the year. And then I bought the business 100%. So I was a 50% owner. So buying the business and then creating a whole new vision and all these new communities and memberships and conferences and cash flow and all that, it was definitely the most challenging year. But you know, now that I own the business and I'm able to align my vision to what the community needs are, it's just unlocked the whole world.
It changes the mindset, doesn't it? Um, like, especially now that the whole lock, stock, and barrel is all on you, you know? When you're yeah, I was thinking back to, like, I had a business partner early on in First Direct's, infancy, and great guy, great person, loved him. It's just where I was trying to take business, it just didn't that alignment was not there anymore, and, but that was a expensive transition. And it was a scary transition because I'm like, I'm cutting myself free. I mean, have you kind of thought of it that way? You're cutting yourself free, or I guess was I mean that this last year definitely would have had challenges because of that.
It's a whole new realm of thought process, I would say. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, I was probably the operator, you know, and doing a lot on the content side. And so I had my hands in the clay, like really running the business. And whenever I removed that piece of the puzzle and it was just me, um, it was amazing how committed I got to making this work. Part of it is recouping your investment. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Like you want to get that nut back, and you want to put it in the bank. So there's that piece of the puzzle, but there's also like, oh my gosh, like I was probably throttling myself back and not thinking big enough
Mm.
because there was a lack of alignment. Like you said, you know, the visions maybe aren't clearly articulated,
Yeah.
and maybe when they are articulated, is everybody able to stick to it and focus? And so once you remove that, and you're the one that can cast the vision, and like you said, you're the one throat to choke, you're the one king to crown. It really does change everything. And so it's been fun though, because I've been able to seek some counsel that I probably otherwise wouldn't have sought. Meaning, I found experts to help me build out, to make the conference revenue model work, to make the membership actually work, you know, from a business perspective. Because for me, as much as I've been building other people's businesses over the years, and you know, CEO of Englander and done a bunch of other stuff, you know, I haven't been building my own business and it's a new business for me. It's not like I'm going and starting another mattress company that I know. So it's been great to be able to kind of open up the aperture and seek counsel from people that are helping me understand, like, wait, there are other possibilities, and here's how you might do it.
Right. It's got that new business smell to it, right? Kind of a I don't know, I reflect back, like, when I made that decision, I'm like, "Well, it's all on me. Let's go." And, over the years, I've definitely learned I keep looking for what boats have I left floating in the water as a safety net that I need to go burn. Like, and I burn them fast. Like, yep, that'll hold me back to where I don't want to go. So It's definitely a challenge, and the chapters as business owners, as we go through different new chapters, we start to realize, um, I think we learn real quickly too that some of the things we felt are scary today, in 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year from now, like that won't be scary no more. We got to look for something bigger and scarier, as something to challenge us. Um, and we got to, I think, I don't know how you feel about this. I look at it like, you know, if it doesn't scare me enough, or like a lot of people look at things that are challenges and they look at that fear, or that anxiety that comes from that, as a bad thing. And I kind of look at it like, okay, how can I amplify that? Like, how can I make it bigger? Because then, if that's my biggest problem, everything else is easy.
Whenever you feel that, those butterflies in your stomach, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
man, this just got real. That's really, on the other side of that is where possibility lives.
Yep.
But otherwise, you're going to stay stuck. And I tell you, for people that are growth driven, like truly, like I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. I love to achieve. I love to see things come together. I love a good plan, and I love to execute on that plan. It just brings me great joy. Whenever I'm stuck and stagnant and things aren't moving, that's when I should just put my head in a hole. Like it's terrible. I got to go back to something you said, Joel. So you said this is a really important principle. You said you've looked at the water for some boats that you've kept in the mooring yard, and like you quickly go burn them.
Yep.
Help me understand that a little more, because I relate to that, but I think the audience should hear more about that.
Well, I guess I look at that just because I've had my own challenges over the last, it'll be 19 years. We started May of 2005, so it'll be 19 years here real soon. Um, and I've looked back at the times where I didn't grow, and it's because I kept too many safety nets. Now, it doesn't mean that you go burn all your cash reserves. That's not what we're talking about. It's the boldness to go make decisions and take moves. And
What's
sometimes
an
we
example of a decision that you made that maybe was similar to burning the boats? An
um
inflection point maybe in your
yeah,
business.
no, there's been times where I didn't wanna make the investment on personal development. Like I remember sitting one time at, a 2-day conference, and those 2 days cost us I think $45,000 for Audrey and I, and, it was the middle of the morning of day 1, and they had a program that I'm like, "I know that has what I don't know about where my business needs to go." And where my business needs to go and what I don't know, it literally scares the crap out of me. And that was a $150,000 investment. And, from a business standpoint, like I just said, screw it, let's go. And I just signed the contract, and I went back and I wrote a little note to Audrey. I'm like, I signed. She goes, what? She, like the little note that went back and forth is like, what? You did what? And I said, yeah, I signed. They're hitting the card, by the way. And I gave her the Amex. They're hitting it. And so this was during COVID though, and at a time where we had a lot of transition happening for our business. And so $150,000 is $150,000. That's not a small investment for any business really. Um, but like those are the types of things I've definitely learned to make the decisions quicker. Uh, a decision has to be made in business. And the quicker you figure out a decision, the quicker you can work with that. But when you don't make decisions, you can't work with that. It goes to like the principle of like you can work with what you know, but you can't work with what you don't know. And when you don't make decisions, you don't know.
I always say, said differently, action reveals answers. And it's
Yeah,
happened to me so many times in business and in life. When I fail to take action, I don't even know the right questions to ask. I don't know the consequences of making that decision. I don't know the positive implications of making a move. So you just sit there on your hands and they fall asleep. No, like
yeah,
action reveals answers, because first and foremost, now you know what questions to ask. You put the ball in play. You're not just sitting
yeah.
there. on the
Oh, and
sidelines.
that's the right way to put it. I think that's a better way to put it. Like, I think a lot of times, we work with a lot of businesses, just consulting them and on the marketing side of things, and they're so scared to take action, and they wonder why things don't grow. And it's like, well, you didn't get the hose out and water the garden, so nothing's going to grow. And the same
I
thing in
would
business though too. Is Go ahead.
Yeah, I always talk about like back in the day, so like 2012 in the mattress industry, you had guys that were starting to sell online because they could pack a mattress, roll it up, spit it through the mail, and it shows up in the size of a mini fridge box on your front porch. That was a game changer. But these guys were selling online, guys and gals. And after about 4 or 5 years, people are like, "Oh, I'm going to get in this. I'm going to get into this game." I'm like, they have 5 years head start because they've had their hands in the clay. They've been punching the
Yeah.
buttons, they've been pulling the levers, they've been spending the money, they've been optimizing their spend, and here they are today. They're going to be way out in front of you. Now, I'll give you some science. You ready for this? I'll give you a little bit of science about taking action. So there was a study done, and they gave two groups this objective. Okay, so the objective was we want you to make the best looking clay pot. So the first group, they were given a bunch of clay and a wheel and water, and they said, go make as many as you can. The second group was given access to an expert, books, all kinds of visual support, and all the information they needed to know on how to make the best clay pot. And so they gave them a certain amount of time. So one group was over there like spinning the wheel like crazy and doing all kinds of pottery making on the pottery wheel. The other group was like studying, learning, analyzing, putting together their game plan. But their job at the end was to make one pot. So then the pots were done. And so the group over here chose their best one. The group over here had their one pot. They put them in front of the judges. And the judges all overwhelmingly judged the ones who'd had their hands in the clay to be the best clay pot because they were taking action. They knew what questions to ask. They knew how the clay felt. They knew how much water to add. They knew how fast to spin the wheel because they were doing it. You have to do things in order for anything to happen, not sitting there reading books.
Right. No,
and
that's
there's a time
exactly
for
it.
input in our lives. There's a time to gather inputs. Then you got to take action on it. You got to synthesize it into something meaningful.
I always tell like my design team, like I want the first version as quick as possible so I can say no to it. They're like, that's not nice. Like that hurts my feelings. I'm like, no, it's actually a compliment. It's because we get to the next version because we're going to have edits. Let's already admit that.
Yeah, just conquer the tyranny of the blank page. That's all you're doing here, man. Yeah. It's easier to edit than create. So you get all the points for creating in the first place.
Right. Well, and then you move that into, for example, like an RSA situation, like in the mattress space. All right. So maybe that RSA is making follow-up calls. Well, they don't know what to say. Just get on the phone.
You'll figure it out.
Ideally have a script, but get on the phone. You need to screw up like 20 times. And then the 21st time, you'll start to get it right a little bit. And then build it from there. So but yeah, you gotta shake the first hand. Or else you'll never know how to shake the next hand.
So your burn the boat story, by the way, like that's some pretty serious cash that you invested there. So okay, that was an inflection point. That was a take action. Yeah. That was shake the first hand. That was design something, do something. Right. What were the results of that investment? I hope it was an investment.
It was an investment. No, 100%. I do it over again. It was expensive. But it's ever since then we've had year over year growth. We have I don't have it with me right here, but on my desk in my office, I got this 400-page book that literally, I would say this, like that was a deep dive into our business. It was the nitty gritty. It was under the covers. It was everything I knew, but didn't want to really look at. And so I would say this, that it's been in the last 2 to 3 years, it's been transformational in how we go about our hiring process, how we are productizing. It hasn't really changed how we service customers, except for now it adds the additional urgency on how we service customers. And we find the people that will also share that urgency. So it's like the staff we hire, they have to share that urgency. Um, from because we're a family-based business, with my wife helping me in the business, I mean, it's helped us. I mean, the first things we had to sort out was us, right? And so when you have family-based businesses out there, the thing that will make or break that business is the other significant person, right? They're your most valuable asset in the organization. And so what it's helped us do is to really define lanes, helped us to get even more serious on metrics and what we're tracking and what's important and where the goals are at, and talk about those things and have the conversations quicker and those types of things. So it's like just this year we're seeing almost a 20% growth year to date so far, and we're on good pace with what's on the horizon for a much higher finish growth. So would I say it was worth it? Absolutely. I'd do it all over again. I always look at, I always look at those types of investments, where it comes down to personal growth, is if you view it as a bad investment, then you never were looking for what you could learn from it. And, I don't want to be wrong. It's not saying I'm not wrong. However, if I don't look for whatever value I can get out of a scenario, no matter what it costs me, then I entered that whole scenario the wrong way.
I can agree more. I remember I believe you're going to have an episode coming up next week with Matt Smith.
Yep.
Is that right?
Yep. That's
All
right.
So
Yeah.
I got to go with Matt to GrowthCon. He asked me to come out to Vegas last year, and I remember I didn't know anything about this world. I didn't know any of the people. I just knew that Matt was my friend, and he wanted me to go, and I was going to go and support him. And next thing you know, I'm walking around with him, basically being his hype man, because so many people knew him from the show Undercover Billionaire. And I was just like, they're like, "Hey, you Matt Smith?" And he's like, "Yeah, nice to see you." I was like, "Get a picture of Matt." So I was hype man. But I remember not fully understanding that world and just deciding, okay, it's a growth conference. It's all about thinking bigger. So my intention going in is one thing and one thing only. I'm going to think so much bigger than I've ever thought in my entire life. And I'm going to be surrounded by that. So I'm just going to absorb as much of that thinking as possible. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I came back home and I bought my business from my business partner. And then we set a record year in revenue, and I only had about half a year to do that. Wow. And now we're on pace to double again. And I have a bigger vision much beyond this. And it all goes back to what you just described, Joel, which is, okay, if you're going to make an investment of your time, of your treasure, set an intention around it so that you can get something from it. A lot of times I say, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And that means, like, if you're somebody that I'm trying to like get a message across to and you just won't hear it, you're never going to be ready until you're ready. And all of a sudden, when you're ready, you're going to be like, oh, like that person can help me, or I have this resource. So that's the idea around, like, don't be the person that the student is ready, the teacher appears. Be your own teacher right now, because all of the mentorship, all the guidance, it's all around you. It's very embryonic. It's going to grow out of this moment where you are right now. But you can go get it, especially whenever you go into any moment and you say, this is going to be my intention. For me, it was think bigger and think as big as I can. And it set a different trajectory for my life, probably.
Right. I always think too, is like, you have to go in with, I think of when I was a kid, as kids, we look at young children and they have the most amazing curiosity and persistence. And so as adults, we get trained through the educational systems and just whatever systems to throw that to the wayside. What if you were curious for a moment? What would happen if, right? I think we need to start asking ourselves those questions more. What if? I don't know. All right, then find out. Do something.
My friend Doug, he's an amazing Dale Carnegie trainer, and he owns the entire state of North Carolina. And he's got this trick he does. I call it a trick. It's funny, but it's also really clever. Because sometimes people will say things like, "Well, I don't know," and Doug will say, "Well, what if you did know? What would the answer be?" So don't let yourself be a victim or a hero all the time. because the victim mentality is going to say, well, I don't know, or I'm not creative, or I'm not good at that. Well, if you were creative, then what would you do?
Yeah.
You
The
know, the
reality is
creative,
people have an idea there. They just don't want to speak it. They're afraid of what will happen if they speak it.
because it's power. It's power in the language that comes out of your mouth
Yeah.
and the
No, I
visions you put in
love
your
those
head.
questions. I love those questions. Well, if you did know, what would it be? I don't know. I'm with you. If you did know, what would it? And I think it's that persistence, that childlike persistence, where we get an answer to those questions, though, too. Because we could an inner defense mechanism. We're trying to protect ourselves because we don't know what's going to happen, and that's the beautiful part. The commitment that we have to the trajectory that we're setting. Like, if you just set the commitment, good things will happen. You just don't know what they are, and they're going to
Well, that's
challenge
another
every.
That's another
Go ahead.
mindset piece right there. It's that mindset is we are wired to want to avoid loss
Yep.
more than we want to get a gain. So what does it mean to avoid a loss? So it means you want to look around and hang on to what you have. Like we as human beings want to hang on to what we have. Well, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, number one, you got to have a vision. You got to have a vision for where something could go. Otherwise, you're just kind of like wandering and ping ponging and pinballing about, I guess. But that's because a lot of people get scared and they're like, I want to keep what I have. That's why, probably the biggest handcuff somebody could have is a job that pays $150,000 to $250,000 a year. Because like you're going to want to keep that. You're going to want to keep what you have because it's going to be scary to set a vision and go get something else. I'm not saying, look, I was very like, my story is my story. Like I cracked the 40 mark, so I'm past that, and I'm just now really, really becoming a true entrepreneur. But it feels right for me, and everybody's going to be different. And it felt right for me in a sense that I wanted to make some real strategic decisions about where my money needed to be in order for me to be able to say, yeah, burn those boats in the mooring yard.
Right. Well, yeah. There's going to be different steps and phases. I think the biggest thing is, are we have to be honest with ourselves, and are we really truly challenging ourselves? If what we want that's ahead, have we paid a price that gets closer to there? And it's the there's a like little incremental, what is it, incremental, I'm trying to think of how it's worded, but it's like incremental steps is like to monumental leaps, right? Kind of a thing along that mindset. It's like, if you just keep stepping towards that direction, towards the direction that scares you, versus sitting still, right?
That was
You'll
probably the
you'll
biggest change in my life from a professional entrepreneurial standpoint that ever happened. I couldn't figure out because I always had little side gigs and side hustles, but I could never really make anything fully come to life. And I couldn't figure it out. And I realized the way I was probably living a very unhealthy version of myself. So on the sliding scale of the best Mark Kinsley versus the worst, I was probably trending a little bit toward the worst side. But what was happening was I would get excited about an idea, and then I would hit these friction points, and I would just give up on it. It was like flash in a pan mentality. And so I decided I had this one idea. I'm like, this is going to be the idea, and I'm just going to do this one small step every day. That's what I'm going to do. It was flash in the pan behavior, and I got all volcanic with stuff because I would get amped up about it and wear myself out, and then not have a good plan put together and just like not nudge it forward anymore and forget about it for 3 months. And then I'd want to come back to it and wonder, why didn't it happen? It's because I wasn't doing anything to make it happen. So I started doing one small step every single day, and it fundamentally changed. The first business I brought to life was an athletic wear company. And, I know it sounds crazy, but the hip pockets that shorts have that hold phones, that went back to me in 2013. And I launched it on Kickstarter. You can look it up. It's called Kippo, Kippo. I've since sold that business, but I launched it on Kickstarter, and we raised $65,000 organically on Kickstarter. And of course, I had a big plan and a campaign to make the most of it. But then I brought that business to life, and I ran it for 5 years, and it didn't lose any money. It wasn't a big money maker, but I learned so much about what it takes to act, do something consistently over time and just nudge it forward. Yeah, you're going to have some big moments when you have to do big things, but some days my one small step every day was sending a text message. But the next day, you know what I would do? I would send another text message or an email, or I would find a pattern maker. Then eventually I was going to fabric shows and I was finding manufacturers in LA and Chicago. Like, the small steps did turn into big steps, but I wouldn't let it pass to not nudge it forward with one small step every single day.
That's all it takes. What was your big target? What was your vision at that time? Because to make small steps, you got to have a bigger goal at play.
Yeah, I wanted to create a category. I wanted to create a category of athletic garments that were really built for functionality and freedom for people that had phones, which we all do. The average person would access their phone 150 times a day. Well, what I found as I tried to get a utility patent, and I tried to, like, the funding component of a business like that is quite onerous. And so I learned a lot about the mechanics of deploying cash for a physical product. And so eventually I decided, I was going to refocus on the mattress business. But yeah, the bigger vision was, I'm going to take on the titans in the industry and start by surgically going after an area where I can create a category. I still get messages to this day from people who are like, man, I miss my Kippo shorts. Can you bring them back? My only mistake, the biggest mistake I made, was not holding back enough product in a larger size, just one size larger. I would have been in better shape.
I think I lost you for a minute. You were taking on the titan industry.
We're back. Yeah, see, they shut me down. I see what happens.
See, it's the verse, trying to keep good things down. We lost you you were taking on the titans of the industry, because I appreciate this, because this actually speaks to those steps each day. You had this huger, this larger target in mind at the time.
Absolutely, I did. I thought, I'm going to build a business, and I was humbled. Let's put it that way. There's a period of time whenever I didn't know how to spend $1 million, $5 million, $10 million in funding. And when I figured out exactly what I would do with that money, and I knew the path to some version of success, I realized how much longer and how much harder it was going to be for that particular business, and my heart wasn't in it. And that's when I decided, okay, like, follow your energy, step into your essence. This is not it. So I think entrepreneurship in some form is, yeah, you got to have a big vision, go for that big vision. But for me, I had to make sure it was aligned with my essence. And right. A lot of my essence is not like, it was an internet company. It was a direct to consumer company. I love being with people. I love talking to people. I love learning from people. I love creating community. And so something there was not feeling like the superconductor I wanted to be. And so I eventually, like, okay, follow my energy, have that moment of realignment and self-awareness as an entrepreneur, and take the lessons learned and put them into something else.
So given that you're a people person, this kind of leads us back to the fam. Where do you see the fam heading in the next 5 to 10 years?
Through the fam, we are going to positively impact more than 100 million people's sleep. And I say that because we are the mattress industry. It is a product that supports a third of your life. You're going to spend a third of your life on this object. You don't spend a third of your life in a car or even the same pair of shoes. And the people that sell mattresses, many of them are coming together, members of the fam, to advance the purpose behind what we do. And the purpose is, we're going to help your mom, your dad, and you sleep amazingly so you wake up and live your best life during the day. And you're able to be the father, the brother, the son, the coworker, the baseball team coach that you can be. You're going to live your life with eyes wide open. And so the beautiful part about doing what we're doing through the mattress industry is, For the longest time, it's been like, put 199 Queen up on your dirty window store and somebody hunks it on top of the station wagon and takes it home. Those days are going away because we understand that we may be kind of a medium to small sized course within a $18 billion industry right now, but we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. And that song is starting to get heard. And that song is one that is filled with purpose and warmth and meaning and connection to other human beings. And so every time somebody comes in to buy a mattress, we want to elevate that conversation to setting them on a trajectory toward better sleep. Because think about it, you buy a mattress every 10 years, maybe less. If you're as an RSA, you're having a conversation with that person. And I'll tell you something, that person is scared. They're scared because most of the time when you come in to buy a mattress, you're going through a transition in your life. And when there's a transition, there's uncertainty. Where there's uncertainty, there is fear. That transition can be moving into a new house, bought a lake house, grandma's moving in, grandma's moving out, grandma passed away, off to college, divorce, whatever it might be. There are a lot of different transitions that are happening. So we want to give people an assurance of an outcome, but more than assurance of an outcome in a good product, I want to set them on a path to fundamentally reclaiming their health and wellness through the foundation of better sleep. That's where we're headed with the fam.
I love it. I love it. What advice would you give individuals looking to join like the fam or entrepreneurs in general? Like what to disrupt the status quo that's out there? What would be your one piece of advice?
So there's an analogy that I have. And so imagine that you're standing on the shore and it's an ocean and it's a harbor and it's evening time. And all of a sudden a tall ship sails into the harbor and you see kind of through the mist and fog, cannons come out the side of the ship. And then you see a Jolly Roger, the skull and crossbones get hoisted up high on the mast. People are gathered as this is happening. What do those people do? They run. Unless you're a pirate. Then you go get on your ship. You, as an entrepreneur, have to be the pirate ship. You have to fly your flag high. You have to be exactly who you are because you don't want to go chasing people. You want them to swim across the bay and come get on your ship with you. That to me has been the safest and the most rewarding place that I've ever been. Because people, they kind of know who I am. I'm a little bit out there in certain ways. I'm a crazy mountain biker. I have one car. I've only had one car for 5 years. We have one family car. I like to walk everywhere I can walk. I have an electric scooter. I travel all over the world and I don't care about like stuff really. I'm obsessed with dogs in general. I love dogs. And I love people and I like to BS. Like I just kind of am who I am and I like to have fun. I like to have a good time. And so fly your flag really high because your vibe is going to attract your tribe. And even if it's not you that's on your entrepreneurial journey yet, like being authentically who you are and stepping into your essence and even getting help with that. This is all about identity. Like when you zoom out, and I'm talking about the pirate ship and being who you are and vibe attracts tribe. This is all about your identity. Okay. And an identity is different than an outcome. A lot of times entrepreneurs are focused on this outcome or this goal, or I want to have a big exit, or I want to raise a bunch of money, or I want to have 100,000 employees. Okay, great. Who are you as you are doing those things that lead up to those moments? Because those moments are going to come and they're going to pass. So what is your identity? And so for me, like I've been really fortunate to I'm in a big transition. I hired a coach to work with me in the transition because transitions can make things fall apart, or they can help them get better and absolutely be like one of those little things that Mario Kart runs across and like catapults him forward. That's what I want my transitions to be. This is all about your identity, folks. This is your identity, stepping into your essence, truly into your essence. And I'm going to tell you something. You will not be able, unless you are wired so specifically, you will not be able to discover this on your own. You will need help. Help for me, it was help from people I trust, help from a coach. I do therapy. I get lots of input and perspective on my life because I want to find that essence and continue to live it and not let anybody derail that, because the world's trying to derail you. I promise you, your identity is what matters here.
Yeah. I think it's really protecting that too, right? You got to protect what inputs could disrupt the journey that you're on. I always, I don't know. I always look at it that way. I love that. That journey. I think a lot of times we're worried about, who's on our journey. And I've tried not to worry about who's on the journey. Just what is this person doing on the journey at the moment? I look at it as there's people that come on our journey at one time, and maybe they'll ride with you for a while, you know, and even being married, like, Audrey's journey is different than my journey. Our journeys just happen to align at the moment, and our goal is to keep that aligned. However, there's also tons of other people that arrive on that journey. There's yourself. You and I have become friends. There's all these people that we meet along those journeys, along that journey that just help us to reach that further destination. That's not just from a business owner. It's not just the outcome of a balance sheet. I don't know. It's the adventure.
It is an adventure. Yeah. And if you're on an adventure, you're not going to be stuck in one place. You're going to be taking your ship, across the ocean. Then you're going to go over mountain ranges and hire Sherpas. And then you're going to meet new people in far and distant lands. You're right. It's just one big adventure. And it's probably not a static thing. Hey, if you end up with some good mates along the way that stick with you and you're able to stick with them, that's great. But that's not always the case. So you got to be along for that ride and just be present and open to it. And like we talked about, understand who you are, what you're willing to accept, what you want in your life, follow your energy, really follow your, like, is this an energy vampire for me? Or is this like making me effervescent?
Right. I love that. I got a final question for you. You probably already dipped into this. Of course, but what's being growth driven mean to you?
Being growth driven to me means finding that goal that's a little bit uncomfortable, no, really uncomfortable, and figuring out how to get there with people that you want to be around. And that's the thing, like growth for growth's sake. Like from a business standpoint, let's say it's revenue growth for revenue growth's sake. Gosh, if you're doing that and you hate it, that's a real problem. That's a real problem. I always say to people, like, your days become your life. Each one adds up. So today, if it's going to be 7 days, then it's 30, 365, then it's a decade. So your days become your life. So what do you do with that information? Well, for me, it was like, I want to design really perfect days, because those perfect days are going to add up and it's going to be a great life. And so being growth driven to me is a constant exercise in maintaining my identity, my self-awareness, and protecting those perfect days. Because you could end up with growth for growth's sake and a big old pile of money, and you spent 10 years putting together really crappy days. That's no way to live. That's not growth to me. And the other thing I would say about being growth driven is really do a pulse check on the different areas of your life. We've done this in our group, and I think it's really valuable. I actually modified with the help of my coach. I'll tell you what it is. I modified our pulse check because the pulse check gives you different areas where you can score yourself. And so think about it like this. Like, I tend to over-index when I think about growth. I tend to over-index on like business and like making money, because I'm like, oh, those things are gonna fix whatever is over here. But it's completely out of balance if I'm making money and doing all these things, but my home life is terrible, or I'm not going on many adventures, or my relationships with my friends are bad, or me and Tara aren't firing on all cylinders, or I'm not seeking out this abundance in my life that I so desire. So I think having that pulse check again, it goes back to your identity. Growth to me is living a great life, not waiting on that great moment.
I love that. And I love that you've encompassed that like across every single aspect. Like there's not a part. It's not just about the business side. It's about our personal relationships. It's about our our intimate relationships, those types of things. So it's really looking at those things. Mark, man, I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to keeping on top of the journey ahead.
Hey, Joel, thank you so much for having me on the Be Growth Driven
There you
podcast.
go.
It's a pleasure, man. I don't know like how many people that listen to the show actually know you. But if you don't know Joel, uh, gosh, man, you have a huge heart for people. You show up, you bring light into every room that you're in with a big smile, willingness to help, amazing team members around you. Like you usually you're traveling with people and they're just absolutely incredible. Your wife, Audrey, is amazing. And you're just a good man and you're super smart and your team is great at customer service. Because I've done stuff with you guys and it's awesome. So
Appreciate that.
congratulations on your 19 years coming up. That's like if I could hit the applause button, it would be going off like crazy. Hold on, do I have it
I
still?
got one of these buttons. There we go. I was like, I got
did
a
have
button
the
over
applause
here that
button.
does that. I just don't want to hit the wrong button because like one of them is the sad trombone, trombone or whatever.
Well,
So
seriously though, congratulations on to First Direct on all your success. You're an amazing guy, and you deserve all this and more. And
appreciate
I
that.
know we're just getting started.
Oh man, it's only just begun. The party's just started, man. That's the thing you look back as entrepreneurs too, is like you look back, you're like, man, I wish, but that's part of the journey. You learn so much along the way. And when we can share what we've learned along the way, I think you and I both, we hope that other entrepreneurs, wherever they're at, if they glean a piece that is survivable, like a hard time is survivable. We just need to know somebody else has done it. It's like climbing a mountain that nobody else has climbed, and you see a flag up there. You're like, okay, somebody else has done it. I can do it
I
too.
got this. I got
Yeah,
this. And wherever you are today, no matter what's going on, just know this. Like envision what you want to have happen. I mean, I can't overstate this enough. Like your mind is more powerful than physical reality. And I'll leave you with this. Like I was putting together my first ever sleep summit. I made deposits. I bought the business from my business partner. I had to take out bridge financing. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a scary time. And I decided, for some reason, having Dave and Jenny Mars from HGTV at Sleep Summit was a great idea. And so, it turned, spoiler alert, it turned out to be true. They're amazing people and I love them. So check out Fixer to Fabulous. They're buddies of mine. So the thing is though, I just had this vision in my head. And so every day for like months, I would envision where we were having Sleep Summit at this hotel, this big ballroom, and Dave and Jenny were there and they were walking around and smiling and people were having a good time and it was filled with people and music was blaring and lights were going off and we're having all this energy around Sleep Summit. And I'm telling you, I envision that every day and it came exactly true. So wherever you're at today, put that in your mind. Put what you want to have happen in your mind and visualize it. I'll give you the 7-day challenge and you tell me it doesn't put you on the right path to where you want to be as an entrepreneur.
I love that. And it's so true. I know it works. You got to write it down.
Write it down.
That goes to goals. That goes to goals. And it's like, yeah, and I've kind of, transparently, like I've lightened up on my own goal writing. I used to write down goals morning, night, morning, night, morning, night, morning, night. It was like a medication to me. And, and I swear to this day, like anybody that's dealing with hard times, maybe they're dealing with some anxieties because of business or whatever the case may be. The medication you need is not from the doctor. Like it's the goals that you're focusing on. And because if you put the right information there, right, things like burnout don't happen. The burnout only happens when you don't know where you're going because you don't have a purpose of why you're going somewhere.
Purpose.
So
That's the big piece here too. Like don't forget about the purpose. You notice we sell mattresses, I've been selling mattresses for years. making mattresses, selling them to retailers, helping. That's not the purpose. The purpose isn't to slang a white rectangle. So never forget that. Like as you're doing your vision and doing your goals, just think about why. Why does this matter? And ask yourself why about 5 times. For me, it changed my life when I started sleeping well. I started eating my own cooking after I was learning about stuff in the mattress industry, learning about sleep. I started implementing it, bedtime routine, getting light early in the morning, all these different things. I started sleeping better and it fundamentally changed my life. And so I want to share that with everybody. So that's why I put the purpose into the mattress.
I love it. Mark, thank you so much again for joining us here today. I appreciate all your time because we
My
covered
pleasure.
a
It's
lot.
been great.
We covered a lot. I love it. Immensely valuable, and I appreciate you sharing all your wisdom and your journey. And I know that the journey's just begun. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the fam becomes in the next 5 to 10 years, the next year alone, because I know it's going to be big. It's going to be the next Sleep Summit. Oh my goodness, it's going to be off the chart.
Hey, if anybody wants to come to Sleep Summit, October 8th through the 11th, 2024, in beautiful Bentonville, Arkansas. Don't turn your nose up when you say Arkansas. Bentonville is beautiful. It's the 18th fastest growing metro in the USA, mountain biking capital of the world. U.S. national mountain biking team is located here. World-class Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art. And we're going to throw down. More than 300 people are going to be here for Sleep Summit 2024. And you can go to thefam.com, right, Joel, to check out more.
That's right. Wait, not that one.
Well,
That
I like
one.
it. You got some
There we
lower
go.
thirds. Oh, boo. There you go, man. It's scrolling on screen.
So go to the fam, literally go to thefam.com, check out Sleep Summit, check out Dream Camp, M3, the mastermind, all those things, but Sleep Summit for sure. It's still, I don't know how many slots you got open for Dream Camp, but those that are watching, check it out. You got to apply. All right, man. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. Until the next time, thank you everybody for jumping on and watching us here on Be Growth Driven. Until next time, be great because nothing else pays.